Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined that a single weekend could unravel everything I had built in 15 years. My name is Ethan, 42, and for as long as I could remember, I have been devoted to Clara, my wife, loyal, present, reliable. We had grown together, shared routines, paid bills, raised a quiet, structured life. But somewhere along the way, I started to notice a subtle distance. Nothing dramatic, no shouting matches, no betrayal that was obvious, just an emptiness I couldn't ignore. It all became painfully clear the night she returned from her cousin's wedding. She had gone with a bright smile, laughing, chatting, photos snapped and shared online. When she came back, she carried with her a perfume that wasn't hers, a different kind of laughter in her voice, and a set of stories that didn't include me. "Ethan," she said, brushing her hair back as she walked into the house. "We need to talk." I nodded cautiously, sensing the tension before she even uttered the words that would change everything. I think we should just be friends," Clara said, her eyes avoiding mine. "I need space. I need to find myself." For a moment, the room felt smaller, air heavier. I wanted to scream, to argue, to ask why 15 years meant so little in the span of a single weekend. But instead, I did something I had learned in all those quiet, neglected nights. I listened. "Friends," I repeated slowly. "You want to be friends?" She nodded, as if relief had already begun to flood her. She thought I would plead, that I would beg, that I would crumble. But I had reached a point long before this, a silent fracture that had been forming for years. And now, that fracture had widened beyond repair. I gave her exactly what she asked for. The following days were a careful, calculated detachment. I stopped texting her first, stopped leaving little notes, stopped initiating dinners or plans. I became the friend she wanted, not the husband she once depended on. Breakfast became solitary, the evening spent in separate rooms, polite conversation only. I smiled, nodded, and stayed calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. She seemed thrilled at first, relieved that the tension she had felt for months was finally being mirrored back at her. The freedom she had sought appeared in full force. She went out more, lingered longer at events, answered phone calls with a casual laughter that once belonged only to me. Each evening she returned with tales of parties, dances, and glances that weren't meant for me. And yet, I remained composed, quiet, distant, but always aware, watching, calculating. One night, she returned later than usual, the air around her carrying the faint scent of someone else. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers. I simply prepared my own plan. Over the course of that week, I organized my life around a future that no longer included her. Bank accounts were consolidated, belongings sorted. The small legal consultations I had delayed for years were finally scheduled. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt free. And for the first time in months, I slept without the weight of anticipation pressing on my chest. But freedom doesn't come quietly. Clara noticed my distance. She tried subtle probes, questions masked as concern. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked one evening, sipping her wine and smiling as though the last 2 days were nothing but light-hearted banter. I nodded, and for the first time, I let the truth linger in the air between us. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm seeing the life I should have had all along." Her expression faltered, just slightly. That was all I needed. The following morning, I sat across from her at the breakfast table. She tried to engage in small talk, asking about work, about errands, about trivialities, but I had already made up my mind. I had already realized that her brief attempt at friendship was nothing more than a desperate way to cling to the familiarity of us, to soften the blow of leaving me behind. That weekend, I filed the paperwork. Divorce. No drama, no yelling, no theatrics. Just a pen, a stack of papers, and the clarity that comes when someone finally stops pretending. Filing for divorce didn't feel like vengeance. It felt like reclaiming myself. Later that evening, Clara came into the study, trying to sit beside me as she had done for years. "Ethan, we can work this out, can't we?" she asked, voice trembling for the first time. I looked at her, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with a calm that had settled into every fiber of me. "We can't," I said simply. "You wanted friends. I gave you exactly that. But friendship isn't enough to rebuild what's been broken for so long." She stared at me, silent, stretching, broken only by the faint tick of the wall clock. And in that silence, I understood something crucial. The past 15 years weren't erased by her choices, nor by my decisions. They were a testament to how much I had given, and how finally I had the right to take back what was mine: my life, my peace, my dignity. By the end of the week, she left the house in the quietest way possible, dragging behind her only memories that were already fading. And for the first time, I felt what I had been craving for years: a sense of control, of clarity, and the cold but necessary justice that comes when someone finally stops hiding behind excuses and faces reality. The first night after Clara left, the house felt impossibly empty. The walls echoed with memories I had tried to bury: laughs from holidays, whispered arguments over trivial things, quiet nights with the TV casting soft light across the room. For a moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake. But the clarity that had guided me to the courthouse didn't waver. This was the consequence of choices made long before the papers were signed. By midweek, the first shock came. I opened my email to see a message from her lawyer marked urgent. My heart sank, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that the woman I had once trusted to share my life was now actively trying to upend it. The letter detailed her claims: temporary spousal support, half of the joint savings, and exclusive use of the house until the divorce was finalized. I paused, reading each line slowly, digesting the audacity of it. Then I smiled. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, this was the moment I had prepared for. I had documented everything: our finances, the separation of accounts, even her recent outings and spending patterns. I had evidence that she had requested distance, that I had complied, that her own choices had led us here. I called my attorney, Sarah Thompson, and briefed her on the situation. "Everything's in order," I said calmly. "She made her choice. We're just following the rules she set." Sarah chuckled softly on the line. "I've seen this before. Ethan, stay calm. Documentation is everything. She can't twist facts you've already recorded." A week later, the next shock arrived in person. Clara's best friend, Jenna, came to the house unannounced. She knocked loudly, her tone sharp, expectant. I opened the door, and she didn't hesitate. "Ethan, you can't just cut her off like this," she said. "She's freaking out. You're supposed to help her." I stepped aside, letting her in, calm, measured. I followed her instructions. I replied. She wanted space. I gave it. She wanted to be friends. I gave her exactly that. I'm not responsible for her panic. Jenna's expression twisted. "You don't get it. She's terrified. This is sudden for her. You're supposed to..." "Supposed to what?" I interrupted softly but firmly. "Rescue her from the consequences of her own decisions?" She froze. Then, almost reluctantly, she realized that I was unshaken, unyielding. There was no emotional manipulation I hadn't anticipated, no guilt I hadn't already felt and set aside. Over the following weeks, the legal back and forth began. Each demand from her side met with a counter from mine, all handled methodically, without rage, without drama. Clara tried everything: claims of emotional distress, exaggeration of financial need, and even subtle attempts to paint me as cold, unfeeling. But every attempt fell flat. I had already set the narrative through my actions: calm, composed, principled. Then the final shock arrived one Friday morning. I received a message from Clara herself, curt, almost resentful. "You've made it clear you don't care. Fine, I'll take what I can get." Her words were sharp, cutting, but I realized something incredible. She had expected me to panic, to beg, to plead. And she hadn't accounted for the fact that I was done. Truly done. That evening, I sat in the living room, the house finally quiet. The divorce was official. Clara had left emotionally and legally. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Not the relief of victory, but the liberation of